set up here. Another episode.
Sometimes I get off watching you die in vain. It's such a shame. It may call me crazy. It may say I suffer from schizophrenia or something, but oh, you made me.
This is slowly connecting. What's up, man?
What's going on, good people?
How you doing, my brother?
What up? What up? I'm good. I'm maintaining.
As best you can, right? I hear you.
What's good with you?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a mix of emotions, really, right? Anxious. I'm mad. I'm frustrated. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm happy. I'm hopeful. It's a mix of everything right now. So just trying to process like every single day, just like everyone else is right now.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. Mix of emotions all around. Don't even know how to feel sometimes, but just taking it a day at a time, right?
Exactly.
What's good, good people? Good evening, good evening. I hope everybody is good out there. I know your anxiety to everybody. I hope you guys are in good spirits. Today is Thursday, June 4th, and this is another episode of From the Front Lines. My name is Gavin Webb. I'm the producer and co-founder of STOOP55, and I'm joined here with my bro, Dr. Cooper.
What's up? What's up? As usual.
He's the director of international emergency care at a hospital currently in New Orleans. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to have somewhat of a producer's roundtable. And we're going to talk about, you know, the social issues and the things that are going on right now in the community and in the streets.
Yeah.
Talk about an interesting topic, sort of addressing white allied education. Sort of as black people, sometimes we have to talk to our white counterparts and educate them, or choose not to, or just navigate that space, whether that be in the office, in the classroom, or, you know, just hanging out. Also want to talk about digital advocacy, and, you know, we're going to keep it sort of candid and keep the conversation fluid. Me and Matthew will talk a little bit, and then we'll bring on our boy, the co-founder, director and producer of STOOP55, Steven.
Behind the scenes.
He's the man behind the scenes, the wizard. He'll be coming on shortly to talk about some stuff. But
yeah,
I mean, just to kick it off, let's talk about this. You know, educating our white allies and navigating that space. I know. I'm not going to mention the company that I work at. I work in programming, television programming. I mentioned it on a past episode.
yeah.
But, you know, hit Sopranos, The Wire, whatever. But, you know, talking to some of my white counterparts, I literally got a call from one of them, good friend of mine, that sort of was asking me how to feel about the things that are going on in the city right now, whether that be looting, the rioting, his emotions being angry, and if they're sort of validated in any type of way. And to be honest, I feel like as black men and women, we shouldn't have to educate people on the history of this country and sort of how to feel during this time. I feel like it's sort of on, you know, Caucasians and white folks to educate themselves and become aware of what's going on in the country that they live in. You know, them being silent and looking for somebody else to sort of, you know, help them and hold their hand during times like this when, as black folks, it's hard for us to even deal from a day-to-day, let alone be inundated with these, you know, images of black folks getting killed and then have to navigate our own emotions. So, I mean, my thing is I don't think that we have to educate them. As, you know, having friends that are white, sometimes I take the time to speak on certain things if I'm in the mood. But it's it really depends. Really depends. I know, Kamaki, like, how do you feel about that? What do you think about that?
So I'm kind of at a crossroads, right? There is the frustration of the fact that some people are I want to say, some people might not have knowledge of the Black experience, but at this point in America, there, I feel like sometimes it's willful ignorance, right? I feel like it's willful ignorance not to know at least the taste of this has been going on, like for hundreds of years, right? The systematic oppression, the disenfranchisement of Black people in general has been going on for years. So it becomes a crossroads of feeling frustrated, like, okay, how did you not know this the whole time? And then even with the movement going on now and people getting involved, I love it. I love it. I love to see it. But then I also ask myself, like, why now? Right? Like, was there something about the videotape? Is there something, a mix of the frustrations along with COVID-19, which I think it kind of made a bit of a powder keg for this explosion of protests that are going on around the world, which is amazing. But yeah, I'm definitely on the end of, I'm trying to differentiate between being able to have the patience to teach somebody and then being on the other end of, well, you should already know. And so if we're thinking about it, how much work has to go in to progress everybody? If I would say, I'm sitting here, I'm patiently teaching you, everyone's limit, everyone's threshold is going to be different, right? If I have a close friend, it's like, oh, you're a good person, everything along those lines. Then yeah, all right, I'm gonna sit down and talk to you. You want to improve? Might give you ways, I might give you directions. But obviously, if someone's outright coming off the street, maybe you might not have that same amount of patience. I'm of the camp, I think, of if someone really reached out to me and was sincere about it, then I don't think I would have any problem like telling them. But it really is to a certain degree what their motive is. If they really think if I really think that they're sincere in their questions, then of course. But as we'll kind of go on, what you're talking about, it's hard to see what the purpose is when some of these larger companies are putting out statements about, hey, this is what's going on, especially the later companies, because you don't know, are they really, do they really want to know? Are they really about it? Are they really down?
Yeah.
Or are they just trying to catch up with the media thread and not get blocked out of all this economy, the loss in funds that they might incur if they aren't down? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's almost like it's trending now to be socially aware,
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
for these companies.
Absolutely.
And just like, the idea of being late, it's like these things have been going on since the start of this country, you know, and only now are people, out active and protesting and wanting to learn about these things that we've been sort of hit over the head with just being Black inherently over the years. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I'm almost torn because if they're sincere and they come to me and they're a good friend of mine, I would want to let them know. But part of me is like, you should go and educate yourself. But
Bro.
then it's a systemic issue because it's like, well, this person didn't learn that at home. They definitely didn't learn it in school. So, you know, where are they getting this information from other than their Black counterparts?
Mm-hmm.
And who better to give them that sort of information and knowledge than somebody that's actually experienced it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is a lot of pressure on us to teach somebody else something that you're going through that's, sort of crazy. Like education, I feel like is a huge thing. It's a huge thing, and I can't help but think about it just from the standpoint, my parents were teachers. My father was a history teacher
Yeah.
that worked in a underserved, predominantly Black and Hispanic school.
Mm-hmm.
And, I talk to him sometimes, or I talk to him sometimes about what he would educate his kids, right? And tell his kids about the history of this country. And, the movie 12 Years a Slave, right? Steve McQueen had put that out in
Amazing movie, by the way.
2013, right?
Amazing movie.
Amazing movie, but it's crazy that people just found out about that story from the movie in 2013. My father was giving that book, 12 Years a Slave, to his kids from like the late 70s, early 80s. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's a lot of things that need to change in our institutions for our white counterparts to be more aware and knowledgeable of the history of the country that they're in. Like, I feel like it's not just in the classroom, but it starts at home too. There's been a lot of videos that I've been seeing about, people sort of speaking to their kids right now and letting them know what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
especially for white parents to talk to their children, let them know what's going on in society and the current events and explaining to them what's happening. You know, telling them and educating them about their white privilege. I feel like that's huge. I feel like white parents need to talk to their kids about their white privilege.
Of course.
So, you know, they don't grow up and become ignorant to these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a huge part of the pie. I mean, there's a bunch of different solutions that we can name.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we're at a point where, you know, we can't go back, and I'm happy. One of the emotions that I have is I'm happy because, you know, people are at least asking questions now. It's like,
Yeah.
you're a little bit late to the party, but at least there's a change happening, you know,
Yeah.
to some extent.
Is there like a fan or something on your side?
Um, yes, there is. It's a hot day. It's a hot
It
day.
is.
Sorry
It
about
is.
that. It's a hot day, and there's no AC in this room. So I'm gonna
Oh,
have to
because
turn
now
it.
it's drowning out your voice. The people are saying it's drowning out your voice a little bit.
Sorry, apologies.
Hey, that's life. It's hot out here, brother. It's hot out here, brother. To everybody joining us now, just wanted to add on, we're doing a little bit different episode. As you kind of noticed, we didn't really send out the flyer this time around. We wanted to do a producer's cut of the show, really talking to myself, Gavin, one of the producers in the back of this, Steven, about our perspective of what's been going on. Just to get to slow down a tad, really be able to discuss our feelings, discuss what other people are saying through your comments, and kind of share that experience. Because I think it's very common for all of us in this country. Just what Gavin was saying, we're talking about these larger conversations we're having with our white counterparts or some of our white friends, and really our allies in general. Because I don't want to limit our allies to just white people. The people of non-black people in general have been hitting me up a lot. And just to say, have you guys in the audience been seeing that? Because I feel like you guys probably have, but I've gotten phone calls in terms of what they can do, what they should be doing. And Gavin was just mentioning, like, you know what, it's very frustrating to a certain degree. Even not saying just our friends, because I think we'll have a little bit more patience with them, but what about our jobs, right? I was talking to my sister, and I was talking to not just my sister, but other people in the business realm who are active, and they are being charged with the responsibility of kind of being the voice and almost the filter to a certain extent, to be how can they properly make a statement to show that they're supporting the BLM movement, if they're supporting Black equality and everything along those lines. So it's very interesting that all of a sudden, you know, our voices are brought to the forefront, which I like to a certain degree, but also, all right, what were you guys doing before, right? And how am I getting reimbursed for these kind of things? At what cost? You know what I'm saying? So are you seeing that too? Or what are you coming across?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I work at a television network, right? And we always talk about diversity and programming, you know, in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I've been getting hit with so many emails from the corporate responsibility department since last week, just, you know, addressing the fact that they're with the black community and they're going to have sessions and talks for people that are feeling some type of way and need to vent. They even sent out an email that said that you can disconnect from your email on Tuesday during Blackout Tuesday. And it's like, yeah, a part of me is happy that they're addressing these issues now, right? It's like, finally.
Mm-hmm.
But where were you at before? You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. You know, I'm in a department, I'm probably the only black male or one of two black males in a department of about like 50 people, you know? And I remember, you know, there's been a crazy amount of black folks that have been murdered by the police and by racist people over the past couple of years. And I remember days going into work frustrated, you know, with like the Philando Castile situation and Trayvon Martin. I come into work and nobody's talking about it.
Saying
You
that.
know, nobody's saying anything, and I'm festering in my office with no one to really speak to, right?
Too
It's like,
about.
where were you guys at then? Like, why weren't you addressing these things then? It's almost like I said, it's like a trending thing to become like socially aware right
Mm-hmm.
now. So like I said, I'm torn. It's like finally you're addressing it, but where were you at? I was talking to a black woman that I work with, you know, in programming today, and she was contemplating whether or not to contact somebody in the department and address some things that she's been meaning to bring up when it comes to, diversity in our program. And I told her, I'm like, yeah, you should probably get paid for this, right? It's almost like a consultation fee.
Yeah.
But I encouraged her to push in, to lean in, just because this is a time that has never happened before. This is a different time in history.
Yeah.
So it's like you almost want people to lean in to sort of push this change on all sides. Whether that be in the political space, in media, or whatever. So it's like I'm happy that there's change happening. I would encourage the black folks that are in position to sort of influence their companies to have this change and have this ongoing change when it comes to making things a little bit more socially equitable for people. But send them an invoice too, man. Get paid. Get paid. Like you said, like people get paid a lot for this type of consultation. You know. And as far as like getting hit up by your white counterparts, I mean it's situational, like you said. Um, a lot of the time, it's like I want to educate people, and it's almost like you don't want to leave a situation with somebody staying ignorant to things that are going on, right? It's like if you're in a position to teach and somebody can learn and better the situation and better the environment, you would want to do that. It's a lot of responsibility for black folks, but I'm seeing it on all realms in the office, but situational. I'm curious to know what is it like in the medical space, as a doctor and talking to other doctors and your counterparts, especially when they have so much responsibility. They're treating patients, and the equity on that side could be life and death. So, I mean, what are those conversations like for you?
It's very interesting, especially in the midst of COVID-19, as a lot of these like health disparities are being magnified and all these problems are being magnified. Um, it's really interesting because most of the time when where I'm working, some people are having a conversation, some people aren't, Um, not to say that they don't care or they don't know or anything like that, but I do feel in certain workspaces, some people don't know how to bring it up and what they should say, and they're concerned of being offensive or not saying enough. And so most of the time when I'm at work, I'm actually not speaking about it to anybody. It's just a general conversation or a general statement saying like, oh man, 2020 is crazy. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
we're not getting into the specifics. So like, okay, it's crazy because, all right, they're protests. All right. Is it crazy because people are protesting? Or is it crazy because you think they're rioting and loot? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's kind of pushed out there and then left alone. It's interesting because I feel like I'm having there are a few people that I have had conversations with about the protests, but I'm having more conversations with my patients, a lot of the black patients that I have who will just bring it up to me. Like, like, oh, they're doing this, especially because now New Orleans is starting to protest. The protests are getting larger and larger. In fact, yesterday was probably one of the ones that made big because they've all been peaceful. And so I don't feel like we've heard much about them, even though they're definitely going on. But yesterday was the first time that the police tear gassed the protests in New Orleans. And so I think especially this Saturday is supposed to be probably the most organized ahead of time. And so I think this weekend's going to be a bigger one. But it's going on all over the world, man. It's going on all over the world. I watched the soccer match the other day in Germany. And one of the guys, after he scored, he ran around, lifted up his jersey, and on his shirt under it said like "Justice for George Floyd." And so I was just like,
So
"Oh, that's wild! That's
that's
wild!"
dope.
So it's nice to see all this marching going on abroad. I think it's all a matter of kind of mechanizing this energy to be like, all right, we're not just gonna forget about this a few months from now. All right, we're changing policies and the political representatives. I've seen that Ferguson mayor just got voted in, right? Have
Yeah, I
you
saw
looked?
that. That's dope.
And so we just have to ride this wave out. A lot of people saying like, hey, this is probably the largest since the civil rights movement in the 60s. So in the history books, it's all about like, okay, what side were you on? What change did you help? Did you contribute to this? And I think people are starting to realize that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I saw a post the other day, like on Instagram, they were saying that I guess it's all 50 states have people that are protesting,
Yeah,
and like
demonstrating.
16 other countries. So it's definitely like the biggest civil rights movement ever in history. And it's like it's important. Make sure that you're on the right side of history, especially like
Exactly.
I mean, as far as like the conversation of continuing to apply pressure, right? Like people are protesting. That like we have this show where we're trying to spread knowledge. Obviously, we're on Instagram, so digital advocacy is a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
People posting, whether they're posting pictures that speak to the BLM movement, or they're posting things as far as just information where you can go to a protest.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you feel about just being inundated with like a plethora of different images, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent, and the power of those images, right? Have you been
Sorry,
seeing
repeat
a
that one
lot
more
of?
time. I was looking at somebody's question on the
No,
bottom.
no worries, no worries. I was just gonna say, what do you think about digital advocacy and the posting of certain images, whether they be like good, bad, or indifferent? Like I know me, it's like sometimes I'll post something that might be very hurtful for somebody to see, but I feel like it could invoke some type of change. Like somebody can see that and become aware, whether that be like one of my white counterparts or anybody, you know. And then there's like posting information. I know there was a lot of misinformation the other day on Blackout Tuesday, as
Mm-hmm.
far as putting the right hashtags underneath a black
Yeah,
screen, or even putting up a black screen at all, just because there's voting going on. And let's not get away from the fact that we have to get the information out there. So like,
exactly.
my question is more or less like, what are you seeing as far as like social media posts, and how do you feel about it?
I mean, I think it's great for the movement for the most part. I think it's great for getting the word out and organizing people, right? I think social media in and of itself, having the video available about all these things that have happened, even just not kind of relating first back to how George Floyd was actually killed, I think that's what riled people up. It's one thing to visually, it's one thing to read about it, right? Because there are a lot of things throughout history, like people know these offenses have been going on. The black community know these offenses have been going on. But now that they're on video, now that they're being able to share it at a fast rate, like you were saying to me before, the revolution isn't going to be televised, but it could be tweeted,
Yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
very much so. I think you're absolutely correct, man, because people are seeing these videos at a rapid rate, and they're not being, even though the media, like on TV primarily before, was the main conduit of seeing these things. Now I'm getting my news on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram before it's on MSNBC or whatever other network, and it's also unfiltered. I'm seeing a video from someone directly at the movement right now.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a video from the person who recorded the death of this young black man right there. And you can see people told him to stop. He was gasping for air. He was asking for his mom. These things are being that we're getting this unfiltered media, I think it's very important for it. Yes, there are definitely some things I was like, okay, all right, there are drawbacks to it, but I think it's very few compared to the benefits of being able to spread the word. Just like you were saying, what happened yesterday in Long Island, right? It was in Merrick
Yep.
that you had all these people that were sounded like they were anti Black Lives Matter. They're cursing out people that are walking. And there's only a few of us. What happened? We showed up. We sent
Yep.
the we pointed out the back signal in the sky. People hit up Twitter and we said we're
Yep.
going to roll up tomorrow, which was today, and they did. There are a lot more people who rolled up. So I think our strength comes in numbers, and the only way we get to that is through social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree
What do
more.
you think? What do you find? Have you found it's been helpful? Any drawbacks? Anything along those lines?
I feel like overall it's been helpful. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like without social media and that type of medium that we're sort of like navigating through as time goes by, without it, I don't think these things would have been possible. Like just to your point of seeing somebody die, an unfiltered video of a man being choked out by a cop,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't see that necessarily on CNN, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that was spread through social media. People saw it, and it enacted some type of change. You know,
Absolutely.
I feel like the progression of technology has sort of allowed these movements to happen in a way. Like without camera phones, man,
Oh,
the
forget
same
it.
things will be
Forget it.
going on, but nobody will be talking about it. And that's
Exactly.
sort of a part of my frustration. It's like, damn, this has been going on for so long,
Hmm.
but like you guys just didn't see it. It's like you get so frustrated as a black man because like you're mad and you complain about things like the police, but nobody believes you, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, now you guys can see it on Instagram. Like that's
Yeah.
what we've been dealing with for the past 30 years. So I'm on the side of like pro social media and getting those images out and that information out. I want it to continue. Even it cuts both ways sometimes. I feel. I know there's a debate right now with Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg as far as stopping the hate rhetoric that people are putting out, specifically people like Donald Trump. It's like
Exactly.
Twitter is starting to fact check Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but guys like Mark Zuckerberg are allowing Donald Trump to utilize that platform for hate
Mhm.
and you can get that word out. But I would rather have it than not have it.
Absolutely. So why, I guess, going back to our conversations with our non-black counterparts or just our non-black ally,
Yeah.
why do you think for those who have kind of been sitting on the sidelines, it took a video or it takes these things to get involved rather than just word of mouth or telling them our experiences? Why do you think like they have to see it instead, you know?
I feel like part of it, unfortunately, is like conformity in a way. It's like, everybody else is doing it, so maybe I need to become a little bit more aware too, especially
Mm,
when you're seeing people constantly posting and talking about these issues. I do think that seeing a man, whether they be black, white, or indifferent, losing his life at the hands of a police officer is something that hits home for anybody. You
mhm.
know, I think it's a mix of things. It's a mix of things, but I do think seeing somebody lose their life on camera is probably the biggest for anybody to see. It's like it's plain as day.
Mhm.
And as much as we've seen some images before, at least for me, this was probably, I don't want to say the most black and white, but at a time, like you said, with like the whole powder keg of the pandemic going on and just people being fed up, period, with their government and how
Yeah.
they're being ruled, it's like, everybody's mad. Everybody's fed up. And this was sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back in a sense.
Got it. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, as I said, like I love this. It's happening. I do. I really do. So it sometimes is frustrating to be like, we have videos, right? We have videos of people getting shot. We have videos of people getting choked out. We have videos of people losing their lives and suffering from police brutality. But this popped it off, and I still struggle to be like, why? And just like you said, I think maybe COVID-19 has definitely added to people's frustrations. It was just like, ah, okay, like, all right, I'll take it for whatever it is. Like, if we need to let's change through this, then we will. I just
But
want to answer somebody's question asked before about the use of some of the force people have been using, specifically talking about police against the protesters, whether it be rubber bullets, tear gas, pepper spray, and stuff like that.
yeah,
So generally it's not deadly, but it's not to say you guys shouldn't be going out there. If you are protesting and concerned about these things, you should be aware and protected. My hospital actually put out a pretty good kind of things we have to be aware of because the protests are getting larger and larger in my area. I'm in New Orleans. So one thing, there are about three or four. So one thing I do when someone comes uh, from a protest and they're concerned, one thing I get worried about is the pepper spray, right? And so after getting pepper spray, it's very much intense pain. If you can, and you're at a protest, wash out your eyes with as much water as you possibly can. Milk also helps. I don't know if there's any data against milk specifically, but any type of liquid to washing out your eyes as much as you can is very helpful. We always look for corneal abrasions, meaning that there's scratches to your eye or there are any foreign bodies to your eye. So definitely, if you go to a medical facility, you have to look at your eyes. We do this something called a fluorescein exam, which we pretty much add a dye to your eyes that will bring up any type of scratches or damages to your eye directly. Additionally, and not just from the tear gas and stuff getting into your eyes, but also inhaling it. So what happens if you inhale enough of it, your lungs go through bronchospasms, or you get spasms in your lungs, which will cause severe shortness of breath. So that's another thing you have to be aware of. If you're having severe shortness of breath, please go to a medical facility in general. Lastly is the blunt trauma you can get from rubber bullets. Them, as I said, in and of itself, it does sting. It is very hurtful. But unless you're getting to your face, your eye, your throat, or anything along those lines, generally you'll be okay. Just apply ice, pain medication. And if it breaks the skin or you're seeing any severe bleeding, you can go to a local medical facility to look it over. But these are just things to be aware of, because I know you'll definitely, some of you being out there in the streets, will be concerned about. All right, my bro. So this time around, we're still continuing our discussion. I'd like to bring on some of the background, man. Gavin, thank you very much for your conversation.